Hey, Adam Hooksema here from ProjectionHub, and this is the third video in a series of 6 videos on how to buy a business with an SBA loan. And in this particular video, we're going to be focusing on how do you find the right business to buy. Now, we've already talked about a couple other topics, just high level buying a business. So there's kind of the first video was just kind of a high level introduction on buying a business with an SBA loan. The second video was a real focus on SBA lending and what is it going to take to get an SBA loan, because I think setting the stage with SBA really lets you know what you can buy, what you might work as a business to buy, what could qualify for SBA. And so we actually had that conversation first. So if you haven't heard that video yet, if you haven't watched that, make sure and go back in the description of the video below. We'll put links to the last 2 videos as well as the next 3 that we're going to be going through in this series. Now, I will say this particular topic of all of the topics is probably one where I feel the most imposter syndrome, because I have never bought a business myself. I've searched for some businesses for a while. I even made an offer on one. I just couldn't come to agreement with the seller, but I've never actually bought a business. And so, you might ask, why are you teaching us about how to find a business to buy if you've never done it yourself? And that is a great question. And that's why I feel that a bit of imposter syndrome, but I have worked with a lot of different business buyers and I've seen how they do it, how different approaches that have worked differently for different folks. And so I'm not claiming to be the expert on the best way to run a search for a particular business. What I'm wanting to do here is focus more on my area of core competence, which is really SBA financing and understanding acquisitions from an SBA perspective. And so I'm kind of marrying that with the perspective on approaches that different people take to find a business to buy, and even things that I've tried on my own. So I wanted to give that caveat here that this is what I have observed. A lot of it is theory. And so keep that in mind and, do your own research, right? That's out of the way. Let's talk about what I hope you get out of this course here today. I want you to know about the 3 main channels for finding deals, how to efficiently scan online marketplaces, how to kind of befriend business brokers, how do you stick out in a sea of buyers, and then how to execute an off-market search, and then how you could potentially buy your employer, buy out your employer, do an employee buyout. Now, the first step here in finding a business to buy is knowing what you're looking for, knowing what you're searching for. And so you need to develop your buy box, is what they'll often call it. The different things to consider within that buy box is the industry. So what industry are you searching for? What do you have experience in? What industries interest you? Where can you add value? Now, again, I'm bringing this back to SBA. When you're applying for an SBA loan, you need to demonstrate that you as a buyer have the relevant experience to be able to own and operate this business that you're looking to acquire. So if you do not have specific industry experience in the business or industry that you're looking to acquire in, you're going to probably have a tough time getting SBA approval. But 2, you're really going to have to focus on how do I fill that gap? Maybe there's already a management team in place. And so really the experience that is important is not the industry specific experience, but the management experience. And maybe those skills are transferable. So that's one area of your buy box. Geography is another key area. How far are you willing to travel? Are you willing to move? Will you need to be on site daily? And then what's the size of the business from a SDE or EBITDA range based on how much capital you have available as a down payment? So for example, if you have $100,000 down, probably looking for deals that are, $1 million at most, which probably means you're going to be in the, could be higher than 75,000 to 200,000. Really probably depends on how much you're putting down, if you're putting 10% or more, but you need to nail down what your size range is that you're looking for. There's also, you need to think about what you're going to pay yourself as well. So as you think about that seller discretionary earnings, is it 200,000 after you've paid yourself, right? So that's a key consideration in there. And then your role. Are you going to be the owner-operator? Are you going to be working in the business daily? Or are you going to try to kind of be just at a management level, managing a general manager, and just be the owner? All right, so there are 3 main deal channels. There is online marketplaces. So this is like biz, buy, sell. These are public listings anyone can see. There's the largest volume of deals. So you're going to get to see a lot of different potential deals, but there's also competition because it's publicly available and everyone else is out there looking at the same deals. But nevertheless, lots of deals get done on online marketplaces. Option 2 is business brokers. And so this is where, a business broker, think of a business broker as like a realtor for selling a business. They list businesses and they act as an intermediary. And this is a lot more relationship driven. Now, the business brokers will often also post their listings on online marketplaces. But what happens sometimes is the business broker will, before they post it out on a public marketplace, they may reach out to individuals that they have a relationship with that they think might be interested in the deal first. And so your goal is to get the first call, right? When a business broker has a deal that meets your buy box, you want to be the first call. And then the third option here is off market. So this is, businesses that haven't listed for sale. The buyer or the owner may not even be thinking about selling the business yet. There's no public listing, but it's a lot of work. And I think a lot of risk and wasted time here, because what's going to end up happening is you might start down a path, you develop a relationship with the seller, but they haven't really thought through all of the process about whether they really want to sell the business. So you could get pretty far down the path and then they realize, oh, here's something I didn't realize about the tax implications of selling my business, or I didn't think about what I was going to do after I sold my business. And, now I'm just going to sit around at home, or what am I going to do next with my life? And so, there's all sorts of things that a business broker is going to help the seller kind of process through ahead of time, make sure that they're a good candidate to sell their business. And when you go off market, you might be reaching out to customers or sellers who just aren't ready yet, but you're not going to know that maybe until pretty far down the path. And then option 4 is an employee buyout. Pretty straightforward. Just you're already working at a business and you want to buy out the current owner. Okay, so for online marketplaces, the behemoth here is Biz Buy Sell. It's the largest. It has the most Main Street businesses. Acquire.com is a good option for SaaS or tech-related businesses. Do a quick Google search. You'll find many, many different business listing sites. But Biz Buy Sell is the one that everyone talks about typically. All right, so you're on Biz Buy Sell. What do? You can sort by revenue and SDE. So does it fit your target range? You can sort by location. You can sort by industry. And then I think what you want to do is think about that price and the multiple to earnings. Biz Buy Sell does have a page on the site where you can look up valuations by industry. I found that pretty helpful. Just to give you an idea, by industry, it will say, on average, the businesses on Biz Buy Sell are selling for 3.2x SDE in the HVAC industry or whatever it is, whatever industry it is. It tells you by industry what those multiples are, which can be really helpful. So if you find a listing that's 5x, listed at 5x SDE and the industry average is 3, you're probably working with a seller who just has unrealistic expectations. So you probably want to avoid. If revenue's declining, I would be concerned about that. That's going to make things hard. If it declined just a little bit year to year, okay, no big deal. But if the last 3 years you're seeing consistent declines and they're pretty significant, double digit, then you're going to have a tough time getting an SBA loan. And so I'd probably be concerned about that. And then a lot of times you'll see claims that the owner doesn't put in any time. I make $1 million a year and I don't do any work. If it seems too good to be true, it probably is. And so be aware of those red flags as well. Okay, so when you are reaching out to either a seller or a broker, you want to introduce yourself in a straightforward and clear way. I would give a brief background on your experience, what you're looking for in terms of industry, size, and geography, and then something to demonstrate that you're ready and that you know what you're talking about. So, saying I have the capital available for the down payment. Here's my down payment. Sometimes you could work with a lender, an SBA lender ahead of time, and they might write kind of a pre-qualification letter for you. If that's something you need help with getting, let me know. I can help with that. But what that does is just shows that, hey, somebody's kind of vetted me already, and it demonstrates that I've got the capacity here to be able to buy a business, and that you're ready to sign an NDA. It demonstrates that you know they're going to ask for an NDA and that you want to move quickly. So that's how I would approach trying to stand out to a seller or a broker. So when you're working with business brokers, what brokers want are serious and qualified buyers, someone who's going to close and not waste time, ready to sign that NDA, clean and fast transaction. I mean, think about this as like a realtor. You know, if you had somebody that was a cash buyer, doesn't need to involve the SBA, like, of course, that's like the best option, right? I don't have to involve the SBA lender or any other financing party. I've got the cash sitting right here. I've got it all, and I'm just going to pay cash for the whole thing. That's the best and most straightforward. That's the best buyer, right? So if that's not you, if you don't have the cash, if you're going to need to use an SBA loan, then you need to try to get as close to that as possible, right? In the broker's mind. So that's again where maybe some sort of lender qualification letter from a lender that says, hey, we've talked to this potential buyer, we've reviewed their resume, we've reviewed their personal financial statement and credit score, industry experience, and we would more comfortable supporting them with a loan of up to X amount, depending on due diligence of the business and so on. That isn't cash in the bank, but it's maybe your next best option. And so getting something in hand like that is going to show the broker that you're serious. And I think that will stick out. You got to remember that the brokers represent the seller, not you. And so that they're going to be paid by the seller or really paid out of the transaction. They're typically, getting maybe something like a 10% commission. It's a sliding scale, or it can be different based on the size, but think of it as 10%. It may not be that much, but keep that incentive in mind, and that the broker wants to close the deal and close it quickly because that's how they're incentivized to get paid. So they want to get a high price, but they also want to get the deal done quickly. And they're not your advocate as the buyer. Wouldn't say that they're your enemy either. They're not your enemy. They do want to work with you, but they are responsible for, working for the seller on the behalf of the seller. So how to win with brokers, be the easy buyer, respond quickly to every deal they send you, even if it's not a good fit. Make sure you respond, tell them why it's not going to work for you. Provide that clear and specific feedback. And then, demonstrating that you're financially qualified is really important. So the way to kind of build that network of brokers, you search the IBBA, the Broker Association. You can look for local brokers in your area, find them on LinkedIn. You can look at who lists deals on BizBuySell, and then, talk to other centers of influence, CPAs, attorneys for referrals. You want to send your buyer profile. So, I think about it as like your resume, your kind of proof of funds or proof of funding availability from a lender, that sort of thing. And then your search, your buy box. What are you looking for? Follow up regularly and remind them of those things, that you're qualified, that you've got the financing in place, and what your buy box is, and then respond to every deal. So that's the approach for building a broker network. And then what do you do if you're looking off market? So off market, I don't know, if you're a business owner, you will get tons of emails all the time, every week, from people saying, hey, would you think about selling your business? It's, I get all these all the time, and it's usually just delete, right? Because I'm not interested in selling my business. And that is going to be the case with most. And honestly, you can tell as a business owner, you can tell that these are just kind of a spray and pray approach, that somehow I'm on a list somewhere, or I met certain criteria, and I'm getting one of many mass emails. You can try that. Maybe it works. It feels like a needle in the haystack. I think, the off-market approach is probably, in my opinion, where I've seen it work better is where there's some sort of relationship or referral base where you're connecting through centers of influence. So this warm outreach approach through CPAs or attorneys, you're developing relationships there, and then they are connecting you with someone that they know maybe would be interested in selling their business at some point. So I think that's an option. You can always do a direct mail or email. I've heard of people that have said, I want to find businesses who list a fax number, and then I'll fax them because no one receives faxes anymore. So if they did receive a fax, they might actually look at it. I've heard a podcast where that worked. So I don't know. It could work. Yeah, I think the disadvantage here to off-market deals is the long sales cycle. Folks, just the seller's not ready yet, right? And so probably what you're doing is planting seeds that may come to fruition in years. So if you are, if you plan to acquire multiple businesses, I think off-market makes a lot more sense if you're just saying, hey, I'm going to look to acquire multiple businesses over time. I'm going to start planting seeds, and over the next decade, maybe some of these seeds come to fruition. Then off-market makes all the sense in the world. But if you need that first deal under your belt, I really think, business broker, business listing site probably makes more sense because the sellers are more ready to sell. I really do like the warm outreach via centers of influence like CPAs, accountants, attorneys, wealth managers, commercial bankers, and you're just trying to get in the forefront of their mind that you are looking to acquire. You want everyone to know, I'm looking to acquire a business in this area. And when people think about, if they ever hear of someone looking to sell, they automatically think of you. That's what you're looking for. I do think that that is a good approach and something to try to do, especially if you're in this for the long term. And for cold outreach, clearly folks are using AI to do this and automate a lot of this. And so I think that's probably the approach to take. If you're going to do it, do the kind of the spray and pray approach, get a list and, maybe buy a list of businesses, get their contact information and reach out to them, and hope that your messaging stands out. Right. In terms of cold outreach, I think one thing that would really stick out is if you are local, make sure to point that out. And all the clearly automated emails that I get, very often they are not truly customized in any way. And no one says like, hey, I know where you're physically at and I'm nearby and I'd love to get coffee. I think that business owners may be more open to that. Someone that is local and just wants to talk, sure. But if I feel like I'm getting an automated email from somebody out of New York City and I'm here in Indiana, probably not going to respond. So if you are going about this with the off-market search approach, you just need to be ready to be patient. And I would treat it as a planting seeds now that may come to fruition in many years. So take a multi-year approach if this is going to be your approach. And if you're in any hurry to buy a business, this is not probably your best approach. You could layer this in with a online marketplace, listing sites, and business broker approach, and just kind of do all three. And I think your off-market approach is where, you might get some needles in the haystack, but it's going to be a long-term patience and persistence approach. All right, the employee buyout. If you are an employee looking to buy out your current owner of the business, you have some unique advantages. You know the customers, you know the vendors, you know the processes. You have a proven track record that you've helped run the business. If you've been in any sort of management, the owner trusts you and they probably want to make it work for you, right? Lenders love employee buyouts. They're the lowest risk profile in acquisitions. They're faster, fewer surprises in due diligence because the buyer and seller really already have a relationship and they want to get a deal done. Now, there are some unique challenges still. Maybe the biggest one is that a lot of times if you are the employee, it probably means that you haven't built up, or at least the employee buyout situations I've seen, the employee often has not built up this war chest of capital that they can use as a down payment. So what I usually see is they check the boxes on a lot of things, but they're usually light on the down payment requirement. And so I think that's something that you need to think through and be aware of and figure out how, you can uniquely still meet that requirement. So I've seen situations where the seller is basically providing a nice year-end bonus that it's kind of agreed upon that now the buyer is going to use that as their down payment to purchase the business, or the seller is gifting the buyer some capital to help go towards the down payment. They may be more flexible with seller note structures to get the deal structured and alive. So I've seen these deals work out. I've also seen situations where because the buyer is not as financially strong, another buyer that is stronger financially ends up coming in and can afford to offer a higher sales price. And then the seller's faced with, do I remain loyal to this employee and sell it to them for a lower sales price, or do I just try to maximize my sales price? And that is something you need to, I think, face and kind of figure out on the front end, knowing that the employee buyout has a lot of advantages, but price might not be one of them. It might be, you might end up with a lower price. And so keeping that in mind, both as a seller and a buyer here. So structuring the employee buyout deal, you're going to still use that same method, the SDE. Maybe you get some sort of loyalty discount, right, with the seller. Typical deal structure is buyer down payment of 5 to 10%, seller note 5 to 10%, SBA is for the rest. Lenders are going to want to see this formal transition in writing. That's what the business plan is for. How is this going to transition from the seller to you? And what's the clear handoff? And is the owner sticking around? And does the owner have a non-compete agreement? This is important for really any, not just an employee buyout, but just any deal. Does the seller have a non-compete agreement in place? And lenders are going to probably want to see that. Okay, some action items here before course number 4. Identify 5 to 10 business brokers. Try to reach out to them. We're here in Indiana or, wherever you're at, find some local business brokers. Send your buyer profile to each, kind of give them your pitch, see if that resonates with them, ask for feedback, how you could be a stronger buyer, how could you stand out for deals and be top of mind for them. Spend some time on Biz Buy Sell, filter through deals, try to reach out, sign the NDA for the top handful and start to try to get information. Look to make an offer if you can. And then start your off-market search. I think you want to start planting seeds. This is your long-term approach. This is the approach that says, hey, if I want to buy multiple businesses over a long period of time, let's start to plant the seeds now. Let's maintain those relationships. And then really, I would say, focus on if you can really highlight that you're local. That's a key advantage, in my opinion. Find the local businesses, try to really highlight that local meetup option, and try to meet people in person if you can. All right, next steps for the next course here. The next course is going to be financial due diligence. So what documents do you need to request from the seller? How do you read tax returns and profit and loss? And how do you understand what SDE is? And what are add backs and are they legitimate? And how will underwriting look at them? And how do you calculate debt service coverage ratio? So this is where we're going to look at spreadsheets and get excited about some of the areas that I feel really confident in on the financial modeling and projections and financial analysis side. So we'll be in my area of expertise in these next couple courses. But yeah, hopefully this has been helpful for you. If it has, I would love it if you would like this video and subscribe to the channel. We're going to continue putting out more videos like this and would really appreciate your support. And if you have a deal that you're looking at, feel free to reach out to me directly at adam@ProjectionHub.com. I'd love to try to help look at the deal with you and give you some feedback for free. We offer a free SBA review. So if you have a SIM or you have some information from a seller that you're looking at and just want an opinion. All right. Thank you again for sticking around to the end of the video here. If you have a deal that you're looking at and you want to reach out and just run it by me, get my feedback or opinion on it, let me know. You can reach out at adam@ProjectionHub.com. We'll also put links in the description of the video below to our free SBA review form. You can fill out that free SBA review and I'll give you some free feedback and try to help guide you in the right direction. So thank you for your support and we'll see you in the next video. Thanks.